Hi, Anup.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So possibly you are the youngest faculty now?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
it's probably the case, yes.
I see. Good.
So I just joined yesterday.
Oh, I see. Very good. All the best.
Thank you.
A nice place.
Yes, yes, indeed. It's a very nice conference, by the way. I was there for the whole thing yesterday. It was very well organized, so thank you.
Fine.
So in this case, they have exactly 15 minutes, right? They cannot go beyond that because we have the time constraint, I guess.
I think you have 6 papers.
Yeah, yeah,
So 15 minutes, yeah.
15, yeah,
So 13 plus 2, something like that.
yes.
You are a student of Kumar Murthy?
Yes, that's right.
L functions
Yeah.
enterprises.
Yeah.
Okay. There is another student of Kumar in IIT Gandhinagar or somewhere.
Oh, that's a student of Professor Ramurthy, Aksha Vatwani. She's a student of Ramurthy, sir.
Oh, I see.
She's in IIT Gandhinagar. Yes, she joined recently,
No.
2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I mistook. There is somebody, student of Bruce Burnt.
Yes, Atul Dikshit. Yes, very close.
I got confused with your names. Anup and Atul.
Yes. In fact, sometimes I have received papers to referee thinking I'm Atul Dikshit.
I see.
That has also happened.
ಇಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ? Hmm?
Good evening, sir. Myself Vasudha.
So, Vasudha, are you the first speaker?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you?
Good morning. Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon. So, can you maybe can she share her slides, or maybe after you introduce?
Okay, sir.
No, we'll just wait.
Firstly, I share my slides.
Just wait. Just keep it ready with you. After Professor Ambert had introduced and started the session,
Okay, sir.
then we can do that.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
ഒരു ഓർഡർ ഒരു Shall we start?
Yes.
Yeah. So the chair of this contributed session on number theory is Anup Dishit. He is a PhD from University of Toronto, worked under the guidance of Professor Kumar Murthy. He was later Coleman postdoctoral fellow at Queen's University, Canada, and currently possibly the youngest faculty member of IMSC. He told me that he has just joined yesterday. So congratulations and best wishes to Anup. So I now invite him to start the proceedings.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to chair this session. So thank you for your wishes as well. So before we start, there are 6 people presenting in this session. So let me just go through some rules. So you have 15 minutes each, 1-5, but out of which you will be given 13 minutes to speak, and 2 minutes will be question and answer session. We will be a little rigid about the time because of the constraints. So our first speaker today is Vasudha Gupta. So can you please share your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So our first speaker is Vasudha Gupta, and she will be talking to us about some combinatorial interpretations of Rogers Ramanujan type identities.
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Vasudha Gupta. I'm a research scholar from Thapa Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala. And my topic is on some combinatorial interpretation of Roger Ramanujan type identities. These are the topics on which I am talking. Firstly, introduction. Second is combinatorial interpretation of RRTIs. RRTI is the abbreviation of Roger Ramanujan type identities, bijection with the 2-color F partition and N color over partition. The most celebrated sum product identities in the partition theory are Roger Ramanujan identities. Given below, these are the 2 Roger Ramanujan identities. They are first discovered by the Rogers in 1894, after that rediscovered by Ramanujan in 1913. A correspondence followed between Ramanujan and Rogers. Ramanujan published a paper in 1919 which contains 2 proofs, one by Ramanujan and other by Rogers, and a note by Hardy. After the publication of this paper, these identities are known as Roger Ramanujan identities. Partition theoretic interpretation of many more similar Q identities have been given by several mathematicians. These are the references. In all these results, only ordinary partition were used. After few years, Agrawal and Andrews introduced N-color partition to find some more combinatorial interpretation of Q series. Now question arises, what is N-color partition? An N-color partition is a partition where a part N can appear in N color denoted by the subscript N1, N2 up to Nn. The parts are ordered first by size and then by color. Here I am giving one example for nu equals to 2. There are 3 N color partitions that are 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. That means कि here 2 copies of 2 and 1 copies of 1. Further, N color partition were extended to N plus T color partitions to obtain the combinatorial interpretation of some more Q identities. The N plus T color partition is a partition in which a part can appear in N plus T colors as N1, N2, N plus T. Here T is a positive integer. With the note, the partition can contain only a part of size 0, but only one copy of 0 is allowed. For nu equals to 2, N plus 1, for nu equals to 2 and T equals to 1, N plus 1 color partitions are 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1. Here we are using the 3 copies of 2 and 1 copy of 1 with 1 copy of 0. So these are the N plus 1 color partitions of nu. In the ordinary partition, the difference condition changes into a weighty difference condition in N plus T color partition. So we are defining as, if we have a partition lambda 1 x1 plus lambda 2 x2 up to lambda r xr is some partition, and where lambda i's are decreasing in a decreasing sequence, then for any two parts lambda I xi and lambda j xj, the weighted difference defined as lambda I minus lambda j minus xi minus xj. In the spirit of above and in our endeavor to contribute more towards the legacy for studying Roger Ramanujan identities, we introduce split part n plus t color partition. Here, the split part n plus t color partition is as n plus t color partition, in which part is split into two parts. If we have a part lambda, then lambda is split into two parts, lambda I dash and lambda double dash. And they have also a bound, lambda dash lies between 1 to lambda and lambda double dash lies between 1 to lambda minus 1. I'm giving the example of 2. So we have these 5 partitions which are split part and color partition. Here 2 is split into two parts, 1 plus 1. Here we interpret following Roger Ramanujan type identities given in the Slater and Chu Jeng compendium in the terms of split part and color partition. These are the 8 Roger Ramanujan type identities. Their sum side denoted with the AK and their product side denoted with the BK nu. To interpret the AK nu in terms of split part and color partition, I have to consider some more Q series. These are the 5 series which I am considered. Here I am giving only one proof of first identity A1 nu. To interpret A1 nu, I have to first interpret A1 nu with the split part and color partition. This is the interpretation of M1 nu. First condition shows the part and their parity is same. Second shows the least part, lambda xr is the least part. If part and their subscript is same, then it is not splitted. But if they are not same, then they are splitted into two parts, lambda dash and lambda double dash, with lambda is equal to the subscript and lambda r double dash is the even number. Third condition shows the weighted difference condition. Weighted difference is always positive and always even. If weighted difference is 0, then lambda is not splitted. Otherwise, it is split into again two parts. Lambda I dash is satisfies lambda I plus 1 plus xi plus 1, and lambda I double dash equals to lambda I minus lambda I dash, which is always even. Here I'm giving one example. We have this is the M1 nu series, and this is these are the few terms of the expansion. For nu equals to 8, these are the 15 partitions which satisfies the above conditions. Using the classical method of classes, I divide the partition into 4 classes. These are the 4 classes which satisfy these depends upon the least part. First shows if the least part and their subscript is same and lambda r dash plus 2 is of lambda r dash, and second condition shows if the least part is of the form 1 1, and third condition shows if the least part is of the form lambda plus 2 of 1, and if last condition of the form lambda where lambda is greater than equal to 0, or lambda r dash plus 2 of lambda r where lambda r dash is greater than equal to 2. After the using some transformations on these classes and some simple calculations, we get a recurrence relation. After that, we get the Q functional equation. This is my Q functional equation for M1 nu. I'm not giving the full proof of M1 nu. After that, this is the interpretation of A1 nu. It satisfies also 3 conditions. First is for the parity, second for the least part. Here the least part always cannot be splitted, and third one is for the weighted difference. B1 nu I'm already said is the product side, which are count the number of ordinary partition of new into the path congruent to plus and minus 1, plus and minus 3, plus and minus 4, plus and minus 5, plus minus 6 mod of 32. So I'm not giving here the proof of A1 new. This is the only Q functional equation which we get by using M1 news Q functional equation. In the second part of my paper, I establish a bijection between the two color F partition and N color over partition. So firstly, I give the definition of F partition. The F partition of a positive integer nu, which is two row array of the non-negative integer. This is the ordered set such that the integers are arranged in a non-increasing order in each row, and sum of all numbers plus 1 equals to nu. The next definition is the M color F partition is the color F partition with the M copies of the non-negative integer. Integers are of the form XL, where X lies between 0 to N minus 1 and L lies between 1 to X. If any two parts are same, then their parts and their subscripts are same. There is a strict decreasing among the part along the rows, and the part follow the following order. Consider colored F partition of nu in which part in either row appear from M copies and are distinct. Here I am denoting the M color partition by CFM nu. This is the example of two color partition where nu equals to 2. In my paper, I'm using this notation, and I'm taking one restriction in which top and bottom row entries of each column appear with the same subscript, and this satisfies the decreasing order, bi also decreasing, and li is equals to either 1 or 2 only. Then I'm giving the definition of N color partition, which is given by the Lovejoy and Mallet. N color partition is defined as a N color partition in which the final occurrence of a part lambda xi may be overlined. These are the example for nu equals to 2. This is the two interpretation with respect to N color over partition and 2 color F partition. First three condition 3.1.a, b, c satisfies the N color over partition, and d, e, f satisfy with the 2 color F partition. This is the example for nu equal to 6. Here A1 nu corresponds to the N color over partition, and CF216 corresponds to the 2 color F partition. These are the partitions. Here I'm only giving the mapping which shows the bijection between them. For any column AI, BI, LI, LI of the 2 color F partition corresponding to the N color of partition, I'm taking the part lambda xi or lambda bar xi. Then I define a mapping, map phi, which first map defined from 2 color F partition to N color over partition, and their reverse implication defined from N color over partition to 2 color F partition. By using some simple calculations, we can easily show there is a bijection and satisfy all the conditions. Our results in this section together with the previous section leads us to the following 4-way combinatorial identity for k equals to 5. Here I am showing with the split part, with the ordinary product side, with the N color of partition and 2 color F partition. This is my bibliography, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Vasudha, for the wonderful talk. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Yes.
Any questions from the audience?
Yes, I have a question. Like the
Yes, sir.
Rogers-Ramanujan identities, do the identities that you have shown also have some interpretation in terms of ordinary partitions?
Yeah, no, sir. I'm not giving the ordinary partition. Only product side is given with the ordinary partition.
Okay, the sum side is not, there is no
No.
interpretation in terms of ordinary partition.
Yes, sir. That is why we are using these tools.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? clearly. So let's thank the speaker again for a very clear
Thank-
talk with many examples. So good job.
Thank you, sir.
So the next speaker, Usha, could you please share your screen?
Yes.
Okay. So it's almost time. So welcome everyone for the second talk of the first contributed session of this conference. So we are happy to have Usha K. Sangale from SRTM University, and she's going to tell us about the approximate functional equation for the elements in the Selberg class. Over to you, Usha.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Usha Sangle. Title of my talk is an approximate functional equation for elements of the Selberg class. Before begin my talk, I sincerely thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to deliver a talk in such a prestigious conference. My system is a little bit slow, so I will switch off my video and at the end I will switch on it. So, as you all know, Selberg class consists of functions having analytical properties similar to the Riemann zeta function. Therefore, first we shall briefly introduce Riemann zeta function and state what is meant by an approximate functional equation for the Riemann zeta function, and then we shall discuss an approximate functional equation for the Selberg class. So this is the plan of my talk. As you all know, the Riemann zeta function was introduced by Euler as a function of real variable, and later Riemann considered it as a function of complex variable S. The function is given by an infinite series summation 1 over n to the power s converges for sigma bigger than 1. The series converges uniformly and absolutely in the half plane sigma bigger than 1, and hence it represents an analytic function in the region sigma bigger than 1. Let us have a look at some analytical properties of the Riemann zeta function. It has Euler product, namely zeta of s equal to product 1 minus 1 over p to the power s to the power minus 1. Product runs over primes in sigma bigger than 1. This is one of the most important identity which connects primes with the zeta function. It satisfies functional equation pi to the power minus s by 2 gamma s by 2 zeta of s equal to pi to the power minus 1 minus s by 2 gamma 1 minus s by 2 zeta 1 minus s. This can be written as zeta of s is equal to chi s zeta 1 minus s, where this chi of s consists of a ratio of gamma factors. This is obtained by taking the remaining terms in the right hand side. Zeta function can be continued analytically to the entire complex plane except for a simple pole at s is equal to 1 with residue 1. Note that the Riemann zeta function is given by series only when sigma bigger than 1, but in many situations one would like to estimate zeta function in the region where sigma between 0 and 1 for t bigger than t naught. So we cannot use the series representation for zeta of s in the region sigma between 0 and 1 for t bigger than t naught. So in such situations, zeta s is approximated by its truncated series with appropriate error term. Such approximations are known as approximate functional equation. So the first approximation for zeta of s is given by series 1 over n to the power s n is up to x plus x to the power 1 minus s over s minus 1 plus O of x to the power minus sigma uniformly or sigma bigger than sigma naught t is about x. In particular, when s is equal to half plus it, we obtain zeta half plus it is equal to sum 1 over n to the power half plus it. Sum is up to t with an error term t to the power minus half. Note that here the length of the sum is t and error is t to the power minus half. This is a very useful approximation of zeta of s on the critical line sigma is equal to half. In fact, I was able to show that this formula is enough to prove Hardy's theorem. It states that Riemann zeta function has infinitely many zeros on the critical line. A better approximation to zeta of s on the critical strip is between when sigma is between 0 and 1 is given by Hardy and Littlewood, namely zeta of s is equal to summation 1 over n to the power s, sum is up to x, plus chi of x into summation 1 over n to the power 1 minus s, sum is up to y, plus O of x to the power minus sigma, plus O of t to the power half minus sigma times y to the power sigma minus 1. Here, taking sigma is equal to half and x and y to be square root t by 2 pi, we obtain zeta of half plus it as sum 1 over n to the power half plus it and is up to square root t by 2 pi plus O of t to the power minus 1 by 4. Now here, the length of the sum is square root t with an error t to the power minus 1 by 4. So this approximate functional equation has applications in finding mean square and mean fourth power moments of the Riemann zeta function. It has applications in zero density results. Approximate functional equations have been established for many well-known L functions in number theory. For example, Titchmarsh proved for zeta square s, which for zeta to the power k will turn for product of two zeta functions. Chandrasekharan and Narasimhan for certain class of L functions. Kowalski and Ivaniuk for a class of L functions. Our present result is an adaptation for their method. In this talk, we shall discuss the approximate functional equation for the functions in the Selberg class. Let me briefly describe what is Selberg class. So Selberg class consists of functions f satisfying the following axioms. Every element in the Selberg class has Dirichlet series expansion summation n over n to the power s converges for sigma bigger than 1. Every element of the Selberg class can be continued analytically to the entire complex plane except possibly for a pole at s is equal to 1 of some order. Functions in Selberg class satisfies the functional equation takes s to 1 minus s, which is phi of s is equal to omega phi of 1 minus s bar whole bar with absolute value of omega is 1 and phi of s is q to the power s product gamma factors gamma lambda js plus mu j f of s where the coefficients lambda j's are positive, real, and real part of mu j is greater than equal to 0. It has Ramanujan hypothesis that's for every positive epsilon n's bounded by n to the power epsilon. every function has Euler product of the form log of f of s is sum bn for n to the power s for sigma bigger than 1, where bn's are supported on prime powers. The classical Riemann zeta function, Dirichlet L functions, Martin L functions, considering certain conjectures, Dedekind zeta functions are some examples of Selberg class. Now, here is our main theorem. So, here we shall use the notation gamma s as qs into product of gamma factors gamma lambda js plus mu j. The statement of theorem is let f of s is a series n or n to the power s be a function in Selberg class. Let g of u be any function which is holomorphic and bounded in the strip where real part of u is between -4 and 4, even and normalized by g of 0 is equal to 1. Let x bigger than 0. Then for s in the critical strip, we have f of s as summation n or n to the power s 1 over gamma of s vs of gamma n by x plus omega summation times summation a bar n or n to the power 1 minus s 1 over gamma of s v1 minus s of gamma bar nx plus r, where r is the error coming from the residue and vs gamma y is given by an integral 1 over 2 pi I integral over 3 line y to the power minus u gamma s plus u g of u du by u. Consider the integral I given by 1 over 2 pi I integral over 3 line x to the power u phi of s plus u g of u du by u. Notice that the integrand has poles at u is equal to 0 and u is equal to 1 minus s coming from f. Therefore, we shall move the line of integration to the real part of u is equal to -3 and apply Cauchy's theorem as shown in the figure. The pole at u is equal to 0 gives a residue phi s and the pole at u is equal to 1 minus s gives a residue r1, which is given mentioned here. Now the integral I becomes phi of s plus r1 plus integral over -3 line vertical line plus the integrals, two integrals over horizontal line. Note that the contribution coming from upper and lower horizontal sides of the rectangle are of the same order of magnitude. Therefore, it is enough to estimate one of them. So here, consider the integral from -3 plus I tau to 3 plus I tau x to the power u phi of s plus u g of u du by u. Using Stirling's formula for gamma function, we obtain it's bounded by x to the power v q to the power sigma plus v into product lambda j t plus lambda j capital T plus beta j to the power lambda j sigma plus 3 lambda j plus alpha j minus half times e to the power minus pi by 2 into lambda j t plus lambda j capital T plus beta j times t to the power a minus 1. Because of this exponential factor, this tends to 0 as t tends to infinity. So the contribution coming from horizontal side is negligible. Now let us estimate the contribution from vertical side. So consider the integral over -3 line x to the power u phi of s plus u g of u du by u. Then by change of variable, we obtain this is omega over 2 pi I summation a bar n or n to the power 1 minus s integral over 3 line and x to the power minus u gamma bar at 1 minus s plus u g of u du by u, which is omega into sum a bar n or n to the power 1 minus s v1 minus s gamma bar nx. Also, the integral I gives that I is equal to summation 1 over 2 pi I summation n over n to the power s integral over 3 line x by n to the power u gamma s plus u g of u du by u, which is nothing but vs gamma n over x. So collecting all the terms, we obtain phi of s as r1 plus 1 over 2 pi I integral over 3 line plus integral over minus 3 line, which gives f of s as 1 over gamma of s summation a n over n to the power s vs gamma n over x plus omega by gamma of s to summation a bar n over n to the power 1 minus s times v1 minus s gamma bar nx plus r, where r is residue r1 over gamma of s. So this is our approximate formula. These are references. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? So we probably have time to take maybe one question, if there is any. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any questions. So I have a question.
Yes.
Do you ever use Euler product in your proofs? It seemed like you're just using functional equation.
Yes, I'm using only functional equation and Stirling's formula.
I see. Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for the talk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the next speaker is Chiranjit. Can you please share your screen? Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So I think we are, we are in time to start. Sorry for not taking any breaks, but we are like in a crunch of time. So I'm very happy to have introduce our third speaker of this contributed session, Chiranjit Ray, and he's going to talk to us about divisibility and distribution of L regular over partitions. He's from HRI.
Okay.
Over
Can
to
you
you,
see?
Chiranjit.
Okay. Thank you so much for the introduce me. So today my talk is about the divisibility and distribution of 2L regular over partition. So before that, we at first introduced that exact partition function, general partition function, and some theorems and some conjectures. And after that, we will discuss about that L regular over partition. So a partition of a positive integer n is a non-increasing sequence of positive integer whose sum is n. So, we denote Pn as the partition function, basically which count the total number of partition of n. For example, if we take number 5, so there are total these many partitions are there. So if we count that, there is total 7 partitions are there. So P5 equal to 7. And for a particular partition, that integer in a partition are called part. So there is a circle mass there. So if we see that, that is that there in that particular partition there is one partition, one part is even, and other all parts are odd. So in this slide we will show some values of Pn. So at n equal to 1, that is Pn equal to 1. At n equal to 2, it is 2. At 3, it is 3, and so on. So you can see that it is rigorously increasing function, and at 105, that value of Pn P105 is like this much. So Ramanujan is the one of the person who at first that noticed that partition, though partition is very much additive property of it reflects the additive property of integers. So but it has also divisibility properties as well. So Ramanujan gave the 3 congruences, and those are those congruences as famous as Ramanujan congruences. And the first 2 congruences he gave the exact proof, and basically he gave the generating function of these 2 particular congruences. And the third one he gave some sketch of this proof in his notebook. And here I can say that is now a mathematician try to understand what is the combinatorial aspect of these particular congruences. And in 1944, Dyson gives some idea of first two congruences by introducing rank. Rank basically is defined as that is largest part minus number of parts. But third congruences is cannot prove combinatorially using that concept of rank. After 44 years, in 1988, Andrews and Garvan, they give the idea of a notion of Planck, and they, proved all the three congruences combinatorially. So Ramanujan also, conjecture that, he remarked that there is no simple congruences for Pn other than prime, other than, modulo prime, other than these three primes. So that was recently proved by Algen and Bolan. They basically used modular form to prove this thing. And that paper is published in 2003. And they proved what Ramanujan's exact claim was. So in this slide, we try to understand how the Pn function is growth. So in first graph, we can see that is first we take n equal to 1 to 10, and then we take n equal to 1 to 50, and last graph we take up to 500. So we can someone guessed that Pn has exponential growth, yes, but P1 not exactly the exponential growth. And here I like to mention that Hadi Ramanujan famous asymptotic formula. They use circle method, and they prove that that asymptotic formula for Pn. Here, for an example, if we take at 100, at 1000, P1000 exact value is this much, and if we use this formula, that value is that much, and it is basically 1.415%. Larger than the exact value. Nowadays, many mathematicians prove that asymptotic formula and why it is, and those are very accurate. It I can say that. And so next we mention one conjecture by Parking and Sands, and that conjecture basically said about that is partition function, the parity of Pn. That is said that partition function is evenly distributed. That means half many partition functions are there which are even, and exactly half many are there which are odd. It is very little known about this conjecture. It is, whatever tools we have now, that is combinatorial and modular form and other tools, that is we are unable to prove this conjecture yet now. And next we talk about that L regular operation, that there is two term, regular operation or operation. So first we define what is overpartition means. So notion of overpartition was first introduced by Quarten and Lovejoy. That paper is published in Tangents and Math in 2004. And overpartition of N, basically nothing but a partition, and in which that first occurrence of number may be overlined. So now we elaborate this thing by an example. So if we take the number 4, so in the right side you can see that there is this many partition are there of 4. So there are total 5 partition of 4, and the corresponding row, we define there, that is that is overlined, that part, the corresponding row that we mention here is exact that overline part of this corresponding partition function. If we take basically 3 plus 1, so we can check that there are 3 over partition are there. So one is 3 bar plus 1, 3 plus 1 bar, 3 bar plus 1 bar. So next we try to define that what is L regular operation means. But before that, there is little bit history here. So in 1894, Roger gave two identities, and those are very famous as Roger-Ramanujan identities. And in 1916, McMahon gave some partition theory interpretation of that Roger-Ramanujan identities in combinatorial method. After that, Jordan gave 2 variables formula for partition, which includes that Roger-Ramanujan identities. Lovejoy here tried to understand that Jordan formula in the in the over partition analogous of over partition. So here we define that L regular over partition. L regular over partition means the number of over partition of n with parts not divisible by L. For example, if we take the number 4, so A44 here, that means that is no part is divisible by 4 here. So we have to omit the first row. So there A44 is 12. Similarly, if we take A34, that means no part can divisible by 3. So we have to omit that second row. So there are total 10 many such partitions there. And A24, that means no part can divisible by 2. So we have to take only that row 2 and row 5. So there are total 6 many partitions there. So here are some results. So Sang here proved some, some congruences for A3 and A4 using some dissection formula, 2 dissection, 3 dissection, and 4 dissection formula. And Alanadi, Munagi, and Seller, they proved some Ramanujan type congruences using some basic theta function. Recently, me and Professor Chakraborty proved some studied some distribution of L regular operation. Here we prove that first we define delta L mx, that means number of n less than equal to x positive n, and such that a L bar n congruous to 0 modulo m upon x. So here we prove that exact theorem here, that is if L equal to this type of this product of some primes where each pi greater than 5 greater than equal to 5, then if pi to the power ai to ai greater than equal to L, then we get this identity. I mean, all this L regular operation is congruent to 0 modulo of modulo m. So if we simplify these congruences, so there, if we take this L equal to only prime, one number prime, any prime greater than equal to 3, then we get this one. And here we basically study the distribution of 2L regular operation. Here 2L regular operation by 2 to the power k for any positive integer k. In fact, one can find one can find some constant alpha such that there are at most big O upon x by log x to the power alpha many positive integer are there for which A2ln cannot be divisible by 2 to the power k also. Here we omit the proof. Next we show that that is I must mention that here we use basically modular form and Sets theorem to prove this thing distribution. Next we use that next we proved infinite family of congruences for A2L. So if we take A and K and N be any non-negative integer and I is a positive integer which is less than k plus 1 and pi is prime greater than 5 and which is congruent to 3 modulo 4 and j is not congruent to 0, j is not divisible by p k plus 1, then we get this type of congruences modulo 4. Now we simplify if we simplify this thing, if we take all the primes are equal and all prime is greater than 5 and there is another condition p congruent to 3 modulo 4, then we get the simple congruences. Here g does not divisible by p, and in particular if we take the prime equal to p equal to 11, then you get that very simple congruences. And here there is two variables are there, one is n and another is n. We give in next slide I show some sketch of this proof. Basically we have the generating function of A2L and we use a 2 dissection formula by due to Hudson and Seller, and after some simplification we try to we connect this generating function to some eta quotient, particular type of eta quotient, and data kind eta quotient is defined by this is basically an q to the power 1 by 24 is product of n equal to 1 to infinity 1 minus q to the power n. Here q is e to the power 2 pi eg and g is belongs to upper half plane. And after some calculation, we can check that this eta quotient is particularly modular form with Nobel type character is -1 by d, and this is a basically Hicke eigenform. Now we study this particular type of modular form and study the Fourier coefficient of the modular form, and then we connect this with that coefficient of a to 4n plus 1, and these are the things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chiranjit, for this nice talk and set of beautiful results. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, so if there are no questions, let's thank the speaker again. So the next talk is by Niveda Bhaskar. Are you around? Can you please share your screen? So the next, can the next speaker please share her screen? Okay, so it seems.
Hi.
Hi.
So I thought my talk is the next.
Oh, okay. So maybe I have the ordering confused. Sorry about that. Okay. So the next talk is by. Can you please share your screen?
Sure.
Okay. So so we have our next speaker. I'm happy to introduce Damanveer Singh. And he's going to tell us about the proof of Berkovich and Encke's conjecture using Frobenius numbers. Over to you, Daman.
Hello, everyone. I am Damanveer. I will talk about our proofs of Berkovich and Encke's conjectures regarding partition inequalities. So we proved 4 of their conjectures. And in the first conjecture, they defined 2 sets, CLS1 and CLS2, where CLS1 denotes the set of partitions where the smallest part is S, all parts are less than or equal to L plus S, and L plus S minus 1 does not appear as a part. We say that L plus S minus 1 is impermissible, and the set CLS2 is defined as the set of partitions with parts lying between S plus 1 and L plus S. With this notation, they conjectured that there exists a bound M which only depends on S, such that whenever n is larger than the bound, then there are more partitions of n in CLS1 than in CLS2. For the next conjecture, they just changed the impermissible part from L plus S minus 1 to L, so it's independent of S, and made the exact same assertions. And then they asked a question which is related to the Q series analogs of these conjectures. However, this time they worked with a general impermissible part K instead of working with L or L plus S minus 1. So they defined the Q series HLSK as follows, and then they conjectured that this Q series is eventually positive, meaning that all its coefficients are positive after a certain bound. And in this case, they do not assert that the bound depends only on S. So the bound could depend on any of L, S, or K. And for the fourth conjecture, they restricted their attention to partitions having a bounded gap between the largest and the smallest parts. And among these partitions, they compared partitions with smallest part 2 with those having smallest part 3 or more. And then they conjectured that the series GL2 of Q is non-negative, meaning that all of its coefficients are non-negative apart from a few exceptional terms in the beginning. So we proved all of these conjectures, and in fact, we proved a stronger result. So Zhang and Zeng also gave proofs of the first 3 out of these 4 conjectures. However, their proofs and our proofs are completely different. So in particular, their proofs are analytic for some cases and combinatorial for some others, whereas our methods are almost entirely combinatorial. We use a series argument at one place, but that can easily be replaced with a combinatorial argument. So being analytic, their methods are somewhat more straightforward than ours. However, that made their results asymptotic, and therefore they did not get explicit bounds. In contrast, our methods being combinatorial produce explicit bounds on when this series has positive coefficients, and also lead to a proof of the 4th conjecture. So next we briefly describe a sketch of our proof of the first conjecture for the case L greater than or equal to S plus 3. So we define the constants f of s and kappa of s. And then we show that whenever n is greater than or equal to kappa of s, the number of partitions of n in CLS1 are more than number of partitions of n in CLS2. To prove this, we construct an injective map between these sets. And so basically, we have a partition here in CLS2. We want to map it to a partition in CLS1. Recall that CLS2 consists of partitions with all parts lying between S plus 1 and L plus S. Thus, any partition pi in CLS2 has this form, where fs plus 1 denotes the number of parts of s plus 1 in pi, or it is also known as the frequency of s plus 1. And also recall that CLS1 denotes the set of partitions where the smallest part is s, all parts are less than or equal to L plus s, and the impermissible part is L plus s minus 1. So to map the given partition pi to a partition in CLS1, we basically need to remove all the parts of L plus s minus 1 and add some parts of s so that this becomes the smallest part, while ensuring that it still remains a partition of n. So the norm of the partition should be the same as that of the original partition. And for that, we consider several different cases depending on the frequency of L plus s minus 1 in pi. And for brevity, we denote this by f. And our strategy for ensuring that the map is injective is to construct it in such a way that in different cases, the partitions in the image have different frequencies of s. So for all of these cases, the frequencies of s are different here. So for example, let's suppose we have a partition pi1 in case 2a and a partition pi2 in case 2b2. Then the image of pi1 and pi2 will have different frequencies of s. So here it will be a multiple of 12, and here it will be 20. So the images of pi1 and pi2 will be different, and we will get that the map phi is injective as long as it is injective within each case. So for defining the map, we consider case 1, for which we suppose f greater than or equal to 1. So we remove all the f parts of L plus s minus 1. And to compensate, we add back 2f minus 1 parts of s. But then still we need to further add the difference, so which can be rewritten as this. And since we have L greater than or equal to s plus 2 in our case, so the quantity in the bracket is greater than or equal to 1. Also, f is greater than or equal to 1. So the entire quantity, the difference, is a number greater than or equal to s plus 1. And using division algorithm, we can show that this number can be written as some combination of s plus 1, s plus 2 till 2s plus 1. So we can add this number to the partition by adding appropriate parts of these numbers. And we also note that the frequency of S in the image is 2f minus 1, and thus f can be recovered from there. And therefore, we get that the map is injective in this case. Next, in case 2, we suppose that f is 0. So we will have two subcases. And then in the first case, we assume that there exists some m less than fs, which has frequency greater than or equal to 12s. But then that means that m appears at least 12s times in the partition, and let m not be the least such number. So we remove the 12s parts of m naught, and to compensate, we add 12 m naught parts of s. So also we note that the frequency of s in the image is 12 m naught, and from there we can recover m naught. So the map is injective in this subcase as well. And for the next case 2b, we have the opposite assumption. So we have that for every m less than f of s, the frequency is less than 12s. So for all of these parts, the frequency is less than 12s. So it's a low frequency case. So that means if we choose n to be large enough, then we will have that there are some parts beyond these which must be present in pi. So there must be some parts greater than or equal to fs. So mathematically, we state this as there exists an h greater than or equal to fs with non-zero frequency, and we let L be the least such number. And thus we can rewrite pi as follows. So our strategy is to remove one part of L and add some parts here, particularly some parts of S. So since L is greater than or equal to f of s, and by definition of f of s, this means L minus 8s is greater than or equal to this quantity, which is in fact the Frobenius number of 10s minus 1 and 15s minus 2. We get that L minus 8s can be expressed as a combination of 10s minus 1 and 15s minus 2. And therefore, the natural attempt to construct this map will be to remove a part of L, and to compensate, we add 8 parts of S, XL parts of 10s minus 1, and YL parts of 15s minus 2. However, there is a problem in the injectivity of this map because the image of S has frequency 8, and so that's a fixed number, and we cannot recover L from there. However, suppose that we were given that f of 10s minus 1 and f of 15s minus 2 were both 0, then the image would have looked something like that. And then we could have recovered XL from the frequency of 10s minus 1 in the image. And similarly, we could have recovered YL. And then using this defining equation, we could have recovered L as well. And the resultant map would have been injected. So the question is, how do we justify our assumption of f of 10s minus 1 and f of 15 minus s to be both 0 simultaneously? For that, we have the following trick. So suppose, first of all, suppose that 5s plus 1 and 10s minus 1 both appear with non-zero frequencies. So we remove a part from each of them, and to compensate, we add 15 parts of s. So thus we can assume that at least one of these frequencies is 0. Similarly, if 5s plus 2 and 15s minus 2 both are present with non-zero frequencies, we can remove a part from both and add 20 parts of s. So we can assume at least one of these frequencies is 0. So one of these is 0 and one of these is 0. That means at least 2 of these 4 frequencies are 0. So these could be these ones, or the cross ones. So accordingly, we have 4 cases, T1, T2, T3, T4. So at least one of these statements is true. And these indices have been chosen such that they are mutually coprime for all values of S, which is required to use Frobenius numbers. So we treat all of them in a similar way. So let's suppose T4 is true. Then we have f of 10s minus 1 is 0 and f of 15s minus 2 is 0. But recall that this is precisely the scenario that we wanted to be in. We wanted to have this assumption that these are both zero. So that is the hypothesis of T4. So similarly, the other cases can be handled. So basically for T4, we can recover XL, YL, and then recover L. So this shows that the map is injective and completes our proof of the conjecture in the given case. So among the references, this is the present work is this. So this has been uploaded to the archive and submitted to a journal. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Damanveer, for the nice talk. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question. So what
Go
about the
ahead.
positivity of capital H? How do you prove that? Is it similar?
Sorry, could you repeat your
The
question? I couldn't
positivity
hear.
of the series H, the fourth conjecture, is it similar, the proofs, or?
So like the HLSK is the kind of the general version for an impermissible part case. So the proofs work for all case. So our proof is for actually for a stronger result for which all of these conjectures are a special case.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions? Okay, so if not, let's thank Damanveer again.
Thank you.
Can I request the next speaker, Sumukha, to please share her screen? Okay, great. All right, so it's my pleasure to introduce Sumukha Satyanarayan from NIT K Surathkal. And she's going to talk to us about an exact formula for a Lambert series associated to a cusp form and the Mobius function. Over to you, Sumukha.
Thank you. I thank organizer for giving me this opportunity to talk about my work. I'm talking about an exact formula for a Lambert series associated to a cusp form and the Mobius function. This is joint work with Abhishek Juyal and Vivekanand Maji. Actually, Ramanujan in his short lifespan has given huge number of formulas. Out of them, almost all of them are right. Only few of them are incorrect. And those formulas which are incorrect also give rise to very beautiful mathematics. I am going to talk about in the introduction. I am going to talk about one of that formula, and that is related to Mobius function. Then I am going to define modular forms and Ramanujan delta function, and a Jagier conjecture which is related to Ramanujan delta function, and a work of Hofner and Stoppel which proved the Jagier conjecture, and the work of Chakraborty, Kanemitsu and Maji which extended the work of Hofner and Stoppel. And my main focus is on my work, joint work with Juyal and Maji. This is definition of Mobius function. It is defined as mu of n is equal to 1 if n is a square free positive integer with even number of prime factors, minus 1 if n is a square free positive integer with odd number of prime factors, 0 if n has a square prime factor. And one can show that in real part of s greater than 1 by zeta s can be written as the Dirichlet series mu of n by n power s. This has this nice Euler product. And Ramanujan, he gave for if suppose alpha and beta are two positive numbers that alpha beta is equal to 5, he gave initially he gave this formula, and which happens to be untrue. Later Hardy and Littlewood corrected this formula with adding this additional term, additional summation, where sum is running through all non-trivial zeros of zeta s. Hardy mentioned that like this series may convergent. It looks like it convergent absolutely, but as of now, like we don't know whether it is like there is no proof for that. So, but instead, like if you assume the one bracketing of term like this, if ordinates of these zeros when they are less than this quantity, that means they are when they are nearby, then they are included in the same bracket. If you do this kind of bracketing, then this series is convergent and this formula is valid. So this kind of series is going to arise in our work as well. Now, this is the definition of modular form. That suppose f is a holomorphic function on upper half plane, and we call it a modular form of weight k on SL to Z if it satisfies this modularity condition for all matrix in SL to Z and Z in H. And further, f is holomorphic at I infinity. By holomorphic at I infinity, I mean this summation here starting from, there is no negative q powers. It is starting from 0. Further, if AF of 0 equal to 0, then it is called cusp form. Now, this Ramanujan studied this infinite product, and he expressed this infinite product in terms of this infinite series when is convergent when mod q is less than 1, and this happens to be a cusp form of weight 12, and the Fourier coefficient tau n, that is called tau Ramanujan tau function, they satisfies some interesting properties. Ramanujan actually conjectured that these three conjectures are given by Ramanujan. First conjecture is telling this multiplicative, this function tau of n is multiplicative. Second one is giving like values at prime powers, and third one is giving the bound of that tau function. In 1916, Ramanujan gave these three conjecture. In the next year itself, Model proved first two results, first two conjectures, but third one later around 1980 proved by Delaunay, and these are some notations. Suppose f is a modular form of weight k, which is a normally Hecke eigenform with this kind of Fourier series expansion, and we can associate an L function of this kind, f of n divided by n power s, and this will have this kind of Euler product expansion in real part of s greater than k plus 1 by 2. This is convergent in terms of in the region real part of s k plus 1 by 2. In that region, this has in this Euler product where this alpha p and beta p are complex numbers such that is satisfying these two properties. Hecke proved that this L function can be analytically continued to an entire function, and it satisfies following functional equation. This is the functional equation which Hecke gave. And Zagir in 1980 conjectured, he considered this series, this Lambert series, he conjectured that as y going to 0 from the positive side, then this will have an asymptotic expansion in terms of non-trivial zeros of Riemann zeta function. And later in 2000, Hafner and Stoppel proved this conjecture. In fact, this is their result as y going to 0 from the positive side, this Lambert series. This is the asymptotic expansion which they derived. This is the constant term, and this is the series. This is the symmetric square L function, which is extensively studied by Shimura, and this is the summation where again the bracketing is involved. The same kind of bracketing which I told before, that kind of bracketing, with that kind of bracketing, this is convergent. This is the and this is then some error term. And later Chakravarti, Kanamitsu and Maji, and they have generalized this result. Like instead of AF of n or tau of n, they took a Fourier coefficient from any normalized Hecke eigenform on SL to Z. Then they consider this series, and they got the similar result in the sense they get the asymptotic expansion of this kind. That is their theorem. Suppose f is a modular form, Hecke eigenform of weight k on SL to Z with all then assume all non-trivial zeros of zeta as simple, then this series has this kind of asymptotic expansion. Here again, thus this term p of y involves bracketing, and this is here again this is a symmetric square function. In our result, we consider a new arithmetic function of this kind, and it is a convolution of Fourier coefficient of normalized Hecke eigenform with Mobius function, and we can see this Dirichlet series is convergent in the real part of S greater than or equal to k plus 1 by 2. And we are interested in this series, whether the question is like whether this Lambert series also has an asymptotic expansion as y going to 0, and is there any connection with non-trivial zeros of Riemann zeta function. And in our work we get a positive result for this. For this, like, we need generalized hypergeometric function. This is the definition of generalized hypergeometric function. If p is less than or equal to q, then this series is convergent for all complex number values of z. But when p is q plus 1, it is converges. This series converges only when mod z less than 1, but it can be analytically extended to a complex plane with a branch cut from 1 to plus infinity. And we define one more arithmetic function, capital F star n, that is equal to convolution of AF with mu k, where here mu k of n is mu of n into n power k minus 1. Then we can see that this Dirichlet series is also absolutely convergent in the real part of S greater than k. This is our main result. Suppose F is a normalized Hecke eigenform of weight k on SL to Z, and assume all non-trivial zeros of zeta s are simple, then this, for any positive y, we have this exact formula. This is not only for y is tending to 0, this is for any positive y, we have this exact formula. In fact, here again the series, this term involves bracketing, and this series is convergent because, like, one thing here we can notice, like, the constant term of 2f1 is 1, and that is neutralized by this minus 1, and that then it will decay after that. Like, we know that, like I just mentioned here, that like AF star of n into n power minus s is convergent in the real part of S greater than k. Using this fact, we can see this series will be convergent. And this is just sketch of the proof. Here we use inverse Millet transform. Using that, we express this infinite series in this as integral form, where c is taken to be greater than k plus 1 by 2. Then we consider this contour c minus it to c plus it, c plus it to lambda plus it, lambda plus it to lambda minus it, lambda minus it to c minus it, this contour, and where lambda is between minus 1 and 0. Then we go for Cauchy residue theorem, and using Cauchy residue theorem for this function, we can see that this will be equal to some residues inside the contour. Those are given by non-trivial zeros of zeta s, and this L function is analytic in that region, and pole of gamma s is neutralized by 0 of L of f of s. So this is only given by the non-trivial zeros of zeta s, and then what we do is we tend this t to infinity. As we tend this t to infinity, using the bounds of 1 by zeta s and L of f of s, and using the Stirling formula, which gives exponential decay of gamma function, we see that this horizontal integrals vanishes as we tend t to infinity. So here, like, what it remains is this function, right hand side, right vertical integral and left vertical integral. Right vertical integral is nothing but our series, and which is equal to left vertical integral plus the residues inside as t to going to infinity. It is not difficult to evaluate residues. We can easily find the residues using these things. And here again the bracketing we need to do, which, or when ordinates are smaller than this quantity, then we are taking in the same bracket. And after that, what remains is to find out, to evaluate the left vertical integral. To evaluate the left vertical integral, we go for the functional equation of L of f of s and zeta of s, and after that, using the functional equation, we arrive at this expression. Later, with the help of Mayer-G function and 2f1, we finally, using the relation between them, we finally arrive at this expression. So that's what this is a sketch of the proof. When in particular, if we take, instead of any normalized Hecke eigenform, in particular, if you take delta z, in that case we have found out some numerical evidence for our theorem. That is, this is left hand side and this is for right hand side. This is for different values of y, and here we have considered around 5,000 terms for n, summation of n, and only 20 terms for summation of p of y. That's this is nicely, we can see that left hand side and as well as right hand side are nicely matching, and these are some references. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the beautiful talk. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, so if not, let's thank Sumukh again. So now we proceed to the last talk of the first contributor session today. And I would like to request Professor Vivekanand Majhi to please share the screen.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Vivekanand Majhi from IIT Indore. And he's going to tell us about generalization of 5 Q series identities of Ramanujan and unexplored weighted partition identities. Over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Anup, for the introduction. Yeah, first I'd like to thank also organizers for giving me this opportunity. So today I'll be speaking on a generalization of 5 Q series identities of Ramanujan and some weighted partition identities. This is a joint work with Subhash Chandra Bhoria and Pramod Uni. So it's good that like previous contributed speakers, they have already introduced some of the notions. So it will be useful for me. Okay, so here is the outline of my talk. First, I'll say about 5 Q-series identities of Ramanujan. And then I'll talk about an identity of Uchimura and the partition theoretic interpretation of Uchimura's identity, which was due to Breshud and Subbarao. And then a generalization of a Q series, one of the 5 Q series identities of Ramanujan. That was a joint work with Atul Dikshit. And then I'll talk about this current work with Bhoria and Uni. And meanwhile, interestingly, we found 2 variable generalization of Breshud and Subbarao's identity. And at the end, I'll mention a new weighted partition identity connected to divisor function. Okay, so here is in page 354, from the unorganized portion of Ramanujan's second notebook, one can find this 5 Q series identity. So in page 354, you will find 4 Q series identity. And in the next page, you will find this Q series. Here, below you can see that one formula for 1 by pi also is present. So Ramanujan's notebooks are, most of the chapters are well organized, but the last chapter of his second notebook is not that much organized. Due to that, people say that this portion as unorganized portion. Okay. So let me mention these Q series identity once again properly. So before that, let me give this notation. So A sub n means this finite product, and then A sub infinity is this infinite product. Then the first entry is like this in the left-hand side, it's a quotient of 2 infinite product, and in the right-hand side, it is infinite series. And the entry 2 is, so at the beginning, these formulas are like, I feel most of the participants are familiar with these identities, but some of them, some of you may not be familiar. So it may look abstract at the beginning, but they really give a nice like partition theoretic interpretation. When we compare the coefficient, like when we write both the left-hand side and right-hand side, try to see the coefficient from both sides, and then we just compare, then we get a really nice result. So that we'll see. So if we just try to remember this entry 2, this coefficient, n is there, then a to the power n and q to the power n square. So this much, if you can remember, then it will be useful for us. Okay. Then in the third identity is this one. And fourth identity can be obtained easily, like letting a tends to 0 And if you replace B by ZQ, then entry 4 can be obtained from entry 3. And entry 5 also can be obtained from entry 3. So all these identities were first proved by Bruce Bund in his Ramanujan's notebook, part 4. So in a joint work with Atul Dikshit, there we found a generalization of this entry 3. And from that generalization, we were able to connect these 3 identities, entry 3, entry 4, and entry 5. But we didn't try to connect with entry 1 and entry 2. So actually it may not be possible to connect from that generalization. So then in this work, we found a more general identity than that. From there, we are able to connect all the 5 identities of Ramanujan. So since Ramanujan mentioned all these 5 identities at a single point, like nearby, so we thought that these identities may be connected. So that was due to that this project came. Okay, so let me begin with this Ramanujan's 4th identity, entry 4. So this identity was rediscovered by Uchimura, and the case Z equals to 1 was known to Kluivert. And this has a very nice partition theoretic interpretation. Like if you see the paper, Uchimura's paper, so an identity for the divisor generating function. So then this right-hand side, q to the power n by 1 minus q to the power n. So if you expand it, then it is basically summation n equals to 1 to infinity dn times q to the power n. So the coefficient of q to the power n is basically dn. Divisor number of dn is the number of divisors of n. Okay. So this Uchimura found a new representation for this expression. So this is the Uchimura's identity. So from this identity, a partition theoretic interpretation of this identity was given by Breshud and Subbarao. So before stating that partition theoretic interpretation, let me give some notation. If Dn is the collection of all distinct partition of n and hash of phi denotes the number of parts of a partition pi, and S of pi denotes the smallest part, then this is true. Okay, so basically, if you see the left-hand side expression, n is representing the smallest part. Okay, and then and it is actually distinct partition is running over the distinct partition, and minus 1 whole to the power hash of pi minus 1 will come. So this quantity is like a weight. Okay, partition is running over the distinct partition, and corresponding to each partition, we are giving a weight. Weight is minus 1 whole to the power hash of pi minus 1 times s of pi. So that's why these kind of identity are known as weighted partition identity. So from this Q series identity, we are able to extract this information, where Dn is a multiplicative function, whereas partition function, Chiranjit mentioned that it has a more additive property. So we are able to different function we are connecting from this Q series identity. So this partition theoretic interpretation has been studied by many mathematicians. Andrews, in his famous paper on smallest part function, that paper was inspired from this identity. And he only gave this notation of FFW of n. So actually Focking Wang, they rediscovered this identity. Okay. So here's the weighted partition identity of Breshud and Subbarao. So Breshud and Subbarao first found this identity, this Dn equals to this. In the same paper, using purely combinatorial argument, Breshud and Subbarao also derived a more general identity involving generalized divisor function. So namely, this is their identity. But they proved purely combinatorial argument. They didn't give any generating function identity. Whereas they started with the identity of Uchimura, then they obtained for formula for D of n, but this formula they proved purely combinatorial way. So they didn't give any generating function for this identity. Okay, for m equals to 0, this was the identity. Okay, Now, let me, a generalization of entry 3. So this is joint work with my postdoc, Atul Dikshit. He was my postdoc mentor. Okay, so let me again recall the entry 3 of Ramanujan. Okay, this was the identity. So for mod A less than 1 and mod B less than 1, this is true. Okay, so then we introduced one more extra variable C. So A, B, C are 3 complex number with such that mod A less than 1 and mod of CQ less than 1. Here, for the convergence, we don't require mod B less than 1. But in that entry 3, for the convergence, we do require mod B less than 1. Okay, but here we need mod A less than 1 and mod of CQ less than 1. Now, if you see, if we put C equals to 1 in this identity, we'll easily we can obtain our previous result of Ramanujan. It's just we have to do one more step, then we'll get this identity. But the motivation came from identity of Andrews, Garvan, and Liang. So I'll mention that. So let me give one implication of this result. So if we let A tends to 0 and if we replace B by ZQ, if we let A tends to 0 and B replaced by ZQ, then we obtain this result. And here, if we put Z equals to 1, then this gives a result of Andrews, Garvan, and Liang. So namely, this result. Here you see they have inserted a variable C here. So this motivated us to insert this variable C. Okay. So here FFW of C comma N is very nicely, they have generalized this 1 plus C plus dot, 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 up to C to the power S of pi minus 1. When C equals to 1, then it is just S of pi. And so FFW of 1 comma N is basically D of N. Okay. Okay, now let me discuss the work with Voria and Uni. But before that, let me again mention the work with Atul Dikshit. So this was the identity we proved first. And then here we try to extend this result. So by let A, B, C, D, D is the new extra variable complex number such that these conditions hold, then this result is true. Okay, so what we did here in the left hand side, in the numerator, we have inserted this C by D sub n and D to the power n. Okay, now if we let D equals to 1, if we substitute D equals to 1, then we immediately will get our previous result. Just try to see that when D equals to 1, then it is C sub n. So in the numerator C sub n, in the denominator CQ sub n, so they will cancel. In the numerator 1 minus C will be there. And in the denominator 1 minus CQ to the power n will be there. But 1 minus C will get cancelled from the right hand side since we are putting D equals to 1. So we'll D equals to 1, it will get simplified a lot. But once we have a identity with one more extra variable D, now we can play with this variable. We can put D equals to 1 as well as D equals to minus 1. We can let D tends to 0 and we'll get many more results. Okay, so here's the few implications. So letting A tends to 0 and letting B equals to ZQ, we get a 2 variable generalization of Andrews, Garvan, and Liang's result. And interestingly, if we let D tends to 0 now, then we are getting this beautiful Q series identity of Andrews. Okay, now this left-hand side, if you see, this is symmetric in Z and C, whereas right-hand side, it doesn't look so, but it is indeed symmetric in Z and C. Okay, now this identity is connected with the mock theta function also. Now let me recall entry 2. I told you to remember this n times a to the power n was there, n times a to the power n, and q to the power n square was there. So now in Q series, there is a use of a differential operator. So we can differentiate with respect to one of the variable z, either z or c. In both way we can do. So if we differentiate with respect to z, and then if we substitute z equals to 1, then in that process, actually, after doing a lot of calculation, we can derive actually entry 2. So from this Andrews identity only, we are able to derive entry 2. But this is not possible from the previous generalization with Atul Dixit. Okay, so here's the brief proof outline of the proof. Okay, so first we use this 3-2 transformation formula. Okay, this is, Anup, can you please tell me how much time is left?
Maybe try to wrap it up in 2 minutes or something.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So let me let me skip this proof. Yeah. So here's the generalization of Breshud and Subbarau's identity. So basically, Breshud and Subbarau, they gave this identity for M positive, whereas we found that this result is true for any non-zero integer, and we are inserting another variable A. Okay. So this is the identity we found, and if we put A equals to 1, then we'll get this Breshud and Subbarau's identity. So, but this identity, surprisingly, we obtained from Ramanujan's entry 4. So let me recall Ramanujan's entry 4. So this was the entry 4, and then we use this differential operator. We are differentiating with respect to A, then we are multiplying. If we do this successively, if we apply this operator m times on the right hand side, then one can easily check that this is the right hand side is the generating function for this, whereas the left hand side becomes a really complicated expression. Okay, because this Q-Pokemer symbols are there. Okay, but instead of this, what we do, first we extract the partition theoretic interpretation of entry 4. So this was given in our previous work. Then we apply the differential. Now both sides are polynomial in A. Now we apply this differential operator. So this is a small lemma. Just using this lemma with R equals to this L pi minus S pi and K is S pi, we very easily we can derive the generalization of Breshud and Subbarau's identity. But what about negative integer? So to prove that negative integer, so we use the integral operator. So we haven't seen the use of integral operator in the Q series, but we are extracting partition theoretic interpretation first, then we are applying integral operator. So, and because of that, we are able to prove this identity for any integer, even for negative integer. Okay. So this is, I'll end with 1 minute, within 1 minute. We found a new weighted partition identity that connects with divisor function. So here D star n collection of partition where only largest part appears twice, exactly twice, and other parts are distinct, and the number of parts is greater than equals to 3. Okay, then this result is true. So the restriction is largest part appears twice, exactly twice, other parts are distinct, and the number of parts is greater than equals to 3. So this formula may look complicated than where H2 pi is the second smallest part. So here is the Breshud and Subbarau's identity, which looks much more simpler. But if we see here, I have given one table. So for D star of, in our case, in the case of D star of 9, so only 2 elements are there, we can easily calculate. And in the case of Breshud and Subbarau's identity, in the D of n, there are many partitions. And even we can prove that the set D of 9 is much larger than D star of 9. So in that way, our result may be effective, not maybe, it will be effective to evaluate a Dn. Okay, with this, here is the few references. I'll end it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivekanand, for a beautiful talk and many nice, beautiful identities.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Manjil. Yeah.
So is it easy to see the other identities from the main theorem that you showed? The 5.
Yeah, okay, okay. That other entry 1, 2, you
Yes.
mean? Yeah. Only entry 2 is the difficult one, but entry 1 also is not that much difficult. But entry 3 and entry 4 and entry 5 we derived from like my previous work with Atul Dixit. So that was also like one kind of easy. But entry 2 was the most challenging part. Because if I show you let me go back once again. Yeah. So if you see here, this q to the power n square is there. So that's why, but if we see the work of with Atul Dixit, so there, I just want, give me one. Yeah. So here, if we let a tends to 0, then q to the power n into n minus 1 by 2 will come. But if we replace b by zq, still we are getting q to the power n into n plus 1 by 2. Okay. But in our generalization, we gave a 2 factor. So that's why this n square will come.
Okay.
Yeah. So d tends to 0 as well as a tends to 0. So that's why this thing will come. Q to the power n square will come. And due to that, it was possible for us to derive entry 2.
Okay. So the other thing is I missed L pi is the number of parts in the partition pi, is it?
No, L pi is the largest part of pi. Yeah.
Okay.
S of pi is the smallest part and L pi is the largest part. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Manjul.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so if not, let's thank Vivekanand again.
Thank you, Anup. Yeah.
So special thanks to all the speakers for this beautiful session of so many wonderful results, especially all the graduate students. Thanks to all the participants who attended the talk and made it pleasant and nice. Okay. So with this, we conclude the first contributed session of day 1. So hope to see you guys all tomorrow.
Thank you, Anup. We will resume our discussion by Dhruv Mumbai, third plenary talk at 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you very much.